Hi, I'm Garnbreak1, and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Ben. How's it going?
That's going good now.
Right on. So you're here today to tell us about Torch and Dagger, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, Torch and Dagger is a brand new tabletop role-playing game set in a nice Grimdark universe. It's designed to be used with D6s only, so it's a nice simple system to learn, and it's got a decent amount of depth to it. So a lot of fun, easy to get into, but definitely difficult to master.
I do love the classic D6. It's good. It's fun to roll. Um, so what makes Torch and Dagger unique?
I think what makes it unique is definitely first off the art style. We have a phenomenal artist. His name is Tony. He goes by Dire Quest on the internet. I highly recommend you check him out. He has a very Mike Mignola, Darkest Dungeon esque style to him, deep black shadows. It really speaks to the setting and the environment that the game is set in. But the game itself is a kind of a first step into a new system I'm developing that will be able to be adapted into other settings. So, as a little sneak peek, we have a follow up called Aces and Outlaws that's in development. That's a Wild West role playing game that uses the same core rule set as Torch and Dagger. But obviously, that's guns and quick draw and you know et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, for sure. So this is ye old fantasy RPG. Is it focused more on dungeon crawling or like wilderness kind of stuff, or?
it's definitely focused more on your classic hack and slash dungeon work. It's I don't want to say it's not something you can run a role play heavy game of Torch and Dagger, but the system definitely lends itself to combat more, and it's relatively brutal. You can a single skeleton can murder you if you roll really bad. It's not like Dungeons and Dragons where you can walk in at level etc. and be like, nah, I'm not gonna get touched by anything in here. Danger is a constant and present feature of the game. So it's really designed to keep you on your toes, and you never know when you're gonna have to reroll a new character.
Yeah, very much in the vein of like classic dungeon crawling.
Yeah,
Reaching the max level is an achievement, not just time.
yeah, and the other thing is it's designed to run for approximately 2 to 3 months is a campaign. It's not something that you're going to run. I mean, you could run it conceivably for years if you wanted to, but the progression kind of stops at a certain point. And then you're encouraged to retire that character and kind of go into New Game Plus, where you create a new character with some extra benefits from the previous character. And that's kind of how you scale it up over time.
Right, right. Yeah, so not like you have magical fantastic powers after like 6 months of playing, but like you have a character who is notably better than the average beginning character.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get the core system runs off of D6s, and there are 5 stats in the game: physical, tough, mental, cool, and social. And what you do is to generate your scores, you roll 76, drop the highest and the lowest, and then you assign those to your stats. So what you do after that is you add up the total amount that those stats equal. So a three, a four, a five, a six, etc. And that determines how many traits you get to start the game with. Traits are kind of like a mix of feats and class features. There are no classes in Torch and Dagger, so you can really mix and match. You could be a battle hardened wizard hurling out bolts of energy behind a bulwark shield if you really want to. But the benefit of the system is if you roll really bad, you get more traits to start with versus if you roll really, really good, you get less traits to start with. So it helps balance things out significantly. And then you earn more traits as you level up. So it allows you to kind of offset, um, that power creep, that scale that you normally see in D&D. You get that through traits and through minor increases to your stats throughout the game.
Right on. What made you go with a classless kind of design for this?
I wanted something that was more customizable, something that was more unique, per character to the person playing it. And the class structure can tend to bog you down a little bit. I love to play wizards and clerics in D&D because I love spell casting. But there are times where I wish I could mix it up in melee. When the beholder shows up and all your magic turns off, you're kind of like, well, just skip my turn. All right. So I wanted something that allowed you to really play the character you wanted to play or the character you would be in that world without really any restrictions.
Right on, right on. I do have a soft spot for classless design for basically those same reasons. So what's the target audience of Torch and Dagger?
I think the target audience is going to be kind of a combination of demographics. First off, a lot of the first ed D&D crowd that are just like, I want my old school, really gritty, low numbers, like, oh, I failed the roll, I'm dead. Kind of gamer is definitely going to see the appeal to it. People who appreciate the art style, that definitely is a draw. We've got a ton of amazing illustrations in this book, a fully illustrated bestiary as well, that people are really going to get into and enjoy digging into the lore of the monsters and how they work and what their drives and weaknesses and strengths are. And then I think people who are looking for an alternative to what's currently out there. We kind of hit this strange point in time where you can play D&D or Pathfinder or Starfinder or any of these number of role-playing games out there. There's a lot of big properties that you can play. So you can play Power Rangers, GI Joe, um, you
My
know,
Little
uh,
Pony.
My Little Pony. You can play literally all these different IPs, and I think people are going to be drawn to something that's a little more, I don't want to say generic, but something that's a little more unique, a little more niche, something that hasn't been seen really in a while. I don't think there's something that has come along quite like this since the first iteration of Powered by the Apocalypse, or like Apocalypse World. Because, as I said, my hope with the system is to get people familiar enough with how it functions that I can then launch all these other projects I have in the wings, like Aces and Outlaws, my Wild West role playing game, Phasers and Photons, my Starship Crew, Star Trek esque RPG, Spooks and Specters, my X Files RPG. I have all these different ideas for systems I'd like to run or games I'd like to run, and I want to create a system that people can build around that. So not only can they use the games that I put out, but it will allow people to build their own games around this system. People who don't have a knack for specifically the mechanical side of things, this will take that away and allow them to just kind of focus on the lore and the guts of what they're trying to build.
Right, right. And when you were developing this system, is this the first game that you put together with it in mind? Or were you working on another project and Torch and Dagger spun off of that?
So Fortune Dagger kind of came into being through talks with my artist, who's working on his own like setting, his own world. And part of that world building was he needed a system to kind of run it in. And that kind of sent me kind of down a rabbit hole one night of, I like his creatures, I like his art style, I like his lore and the history of his world. Let me build something around that. And that's basically what I kind of started doing. And from there, it grew into its own project. And as it grew, I saw the potential for further growth and for me to take this project and turn it into multiple projects down the road.
Right on, right on. And I do quite like the art. I don't think I said earlier. Magnolia-esque is definitely the phrase for it. It's very cool. When's the launch date of this Kickstarter?
So we are going to be a part of Zine Quest, which is going to be in February. So we're going to be launching on February 7th. So lucky number 7, hopefully, for us. And, it will be a standard 30-day campaign. Fairly low goal. The nice thing about Torch and Dagger is the majority of the book is done. I'd say it's about 98, 99% finished. I'm waiting on a couple pieces of artwork to slot in, and then it's ready to hit the presses. So really, our goal is essentially just production cost. Unlike a lot of projects where it's like, well, I need to pay for the art, I need to pay for the license, I need to pay for et cetera, et cetera. We've got all that covered. I've put my own money into this over the past about 2 to 3 years to really get it to where it is, so we can have a nice successful launch on Kickstarter and hopefully fund not only day one, but hopefully in the first few hours.
Are you gonna have a printer-friendly version of the PDF? Because this is gonna be a lot of black ink.
Possibly. We are going to look to see what we can do. The one downside of this particular art style is it does lend itself to black really, really well. It's deep shadows. It's not a printer's best friend.
Yeah.
So we will have PDFs, soft covers. We're also going to do a box set. We're in talks with a few different production companies right now to figure out who we want to go with, but the box set will include the soft cover, character sheets, the GM screen, custom dice, everything you're going to need to run the game. So it'll be a real nice, perfect package that you can run with. The nice thing is you can run the game with 2 people. A lot of times, a lot of games, if you don't have 5 or 6, 7 people to play, you can't get a game going. Well, Torch and Dagger is very easily run with just a couple people sitting back and forth.
Right on. Are you gonna have the like tear off pad of character sheets?
I do actually have a tear off pad of character sheets and a prototype I have printed already.
Nice. Love that. That's perfect for this kind of game.
It's like, oh, you're dead, just tear off a new one.
Yeah. Get writing, buddy. Yeah. So is this like a fairly human centric game, or do you have a variety of fantasy races for people to shove their brains into?
We've got all the fantasy races that the standards that people are used to seeing. So you can play as a human if you want to play as a human. If you want to play as, a dwarf, we've got dwarves, we've got elves, gnomes, halflings, half orcs, and then you can play as a boring human if you really want to. The bestiary is over 50 monsters. A lot of them are classic RPG tropes. We have things like your goblins, your orcs, your basilisks, dragons. And then we've got some more niche stuff like Ankegs and Boulets and Odiogs and really a variety of monsters. I tried to include enough variety that it wouldn't get stale.
Right. I love the Yonkeg. They're horrible looking.
Yeah, the art, that's one of my favorite art pieces that he's done is the Ankeg art piece so far.
Is there like a deck of monster cards that comes with this?
There is. So I've actually just finished doing the art on everything and getting the layouts done. So there is a deck of 50 monster cards. I forgot to mention that comes in the box set. You get a print and play version at all other tiers, and those will suck the black ink out of your printer. I apologize in advance. Maybe do it through a Staples. But yeah, it gives the game master everything they need on one side, and then beautiful full color, or beautiful full size art on the other side for the players to take a look at. So you can say this is what you're fighting, and then they can freak out.
Dream. I love that. And also, yes, the Yonkeg art is sufficiently terrifying. I'll put it that way. You would not want to run into that in a dark alley or a dark dungeon.
Very true. And the cool thing about the monsters, I think, and the thing that sets our bestiary apart from what you see normally in, like, say, Dungeons and Dragons, is there is 4 defining elements to every single monster. There's some basic background on how the monster functions, like what it is, what is this thing I'm fighting. There's also a strength, weakness, and drive. So it's very easy as a DM to set up an encounter based on those few things. So Onkegs, for example, are very territorial in this world. So whereas they might be a very difficult fight, you can always flee. They're not going to follow you very far. Dragons, for example, have hubris is their main weakness. They're easily appeased by trinkets and gold and flattery and things such as that. So you can very much pull a Bilbo Baggins and talk your way out of a fight with a dragon. Whereas, in some session, in most games, dragon shows up, just roll initiative.
I appreciate that, yeah. I look, you don't want to fight a dragon, even if it's in the name of the game. You don't want to do it. They're scary.
Dragons in this game are probably the most lethal of the combatants you'll come across. They have a lot of health. They hit like trucks. They can scare the crap out of you. This is definitely a thinking man's role playing game where strategy and tactics matter. The combat is done very um, theater of the mind. The range bands I actually adapted from the Powered by the Apocalypse system, which then was adapted into Dungeon World, which is one of my favorite tabletop role playing games from about 10 years ago. And it's everything is designed to be very loose and fluid. There is an advantage and disadvantage mechanic in the game that makes things easier or more difficult, and that's really left up to the DM to decide how they want to implement that and what benefits. Like when should you have that advantage? Is it when you have the high ground? Is it when the opponent's prone? Is it when you have surprise? So it's structured in a way to make it very comfortable as a game master to run, and as a player you can really advocate for why you should get advantage or why you shouldn't have disadvantage or why this specific tactic should work versus something instead of just charging and hitting it, we're going to try and knock it down first and then go for it while it's prone and more defenseless, and it breeds that very well.
Right on, right on. My favorite kind of combat. Get to the ground and just punch it. All right. Well, are there any other aspects of Torch and Dagger that we haven't touched on yet that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, really, with Torch and Dagger, it has a little bit of everything for everyone. The trait system, I think, is phenomenal for building a custom character that's really going to work the way you want it to. We also have a potion system, an alchemy system built in as well, to essentially take the components you find in the world and components you find on monsters as you slay them and turn them into usable items. Things that can deal damage, protect you, heal you, um, all manner of sorts of different functions. And it's left relatively open. So once again, as a player, you can say, hey, this is what I want to do. And there's the GM, you can say, okay, this is what you're going to need.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, so it's less of a shopping list and more of a reference guide for the alchemy.
Very much so. I was always a fan of the game Mage, The Awakening, and how they handled magic, where it was less like I cast Fireball to I'm going to manipulate this aspect to cause this effect to have this resolution. And I wanted something similar for Torch and Dagger, where it was you could be more creative. You're not as restricted as you are in some aspects of other games.
Right, right. There's a broad range of creative influences here I'm seeing. You got a little bit of PBTA, advantage disadvantage from glorious 5th edition, the most amazing role playing game anybody will play with me. Um, yeah, and like World of Darkness. I think that's old World of Darkness. Maybe.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I can never remember which is which. For some
Yeah.
reason, the names are very indicative.
It's the version I'm referencing is a good 10 plus years old. So I do believe it qualifies as the old World of Darkness now.
Right, right. Yeah, right. Because now there's the old World of Darkness, the old World of Darkness, and the new World of Darkness,
Correct.
and Monty Cook's World of Darkness D20. But we don't talk about that one. Anyway, Torch and Dagger, the thinking man's role playing game. Go into a dungeon, punch some things, play a human if you're cool like me.
I think my favorite quote from the original playtest we did was because you get two actions on your turn and you can attack twice if that's still your choice. And me informing a player of that, the quote was Torch and Dagger, where you can stabby stab twice.
Listen, if you can attack twice, attack twice. That's how you do it. That's my goal. That's my plan. I'm gonna die so many times in this, man.
And you're welcome to play anytime. We're actually getting ready to do some playtest material coming up the next few weeks. Get some episodes recorded and get them on the Kickstarter page and on our YouTube channel so people can check it out and see if the game's for them.
Nice. Well, Ben, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great, Carm. I appreciate the time, and it was good catching up.
Hell yeah. And for those of you watching, there's a link below in the top comment. You can click on the notify button for it to notify you on launch, or you can write down February 7th in your little journal that you check all the time. Because journals are cool. Anyway, have a good night, everybody.